Nolan Everett didn't expect his afternoon to end with a man twice his size pinned to the sidewalk and a woman in designer heels staring at him like he'd just saved her life. "Let go of me, you jerk," the woman shouted, yanking her arm back, but the guy gripping her wrist wouldn't budge. Nolan had been walking with his 7-year-old daughter, Chloe, one hand holding her little pink backpack, the other gripping her hand tightly, when he saw it happen outside the downtown café. A man in a wrinkled suit cornered a woman near the curb, one hand clamped around her forearm. "I said no, Jeremy," she said, voice firm, but the guy only pulled her closer. Nolan didn't hesitate. "Hey," he barked, shoving Chloe gently behind him. "Let her go." The guy turned, eyes narrowing. "Mind your business," but Nolan stepped forward anyway. "You're making it mine," the man scoffed. "Who even are you?" Nolan didn't answer. He just grabbed the guy's wrist and twisted. The woman stumbled back as the man cursed and tried to swing. Nolan ducked, shoved him against the sidewalk, and held him there until a security guard from the cafe rushed over. By the time the guy was escorted away and the crowd dispersed, Nolan turned to the woman, breathing hard. "You okay?" She looked at him, stunned, her voice catching. Yeah. "I am now." She was striking long dark hair, sharp eyes, power in every inch of her. She dusted off her tailored cream blazer and tugged her sleeve back down. "You didn't have to do that," she said. He laughed under his breath. "Yeah, well, I couldn't just walk by. My daughter was with me." At the sound of that, the little girl peeked out from behind him. "Is she okay, Daddy?" The woman's entire expression softened. "Hi there, I'm okay, thanks to your dad. What's your name?" "Chloe," she whispered. "And I'm Harper Hayes," the woman said, crouching slightly so she was eye level with the girl. "It's very nice to meet you." Chloe nodded, then looked up at her father. "Can we still get cookies?" Nolan grinned. "Yeah, kiddo, cookies are still on the menu." Harper stood back up. "I should." "Thank you," she said, reaching into her purse. "At least let me pay for your coffee." He shook his head. "No need, I'm just glad you're all right." She tilted her head. "You always go around rescuing strangers. Only the ones being harassed outside bakeries," he said, wiping his hands on his jeans. "Come on, Chloe." But before he could walk off, Harper called, "Wait." He turned. "Can I buy you both dinner sometime?" she asked, her voice hesitant now. Nolan blinked. "Dinner? I mean, it's the least I can do. Look, I don't usually ask men with their kids to dinner. This isn't, I just mean, as a thank you." For a second, he almost said no. His life was already a mess, working 2 jobs, trying to make ends meet since Chloe's mom left 3 years ago. He didn't have time for whatever this was. But Harper's eyes weren't just grateful. They were curious, and something about her, about the way she looked at him like he wasn't invisible, woke something he hadn't felt in years. He nodded once. "Okay, sure." 2 nights later, Nolan regretted saying yes. Not because Harper had done anything wrong. Quite the opposite. He stood outside the restaurant she'd picked, holding Chloe's hand again, staring at the marble entrance and the gold-plated lettering. It was not a place he'd normally be allowed in, much less afford a glass of water at. Harper stepped out just then, in a sleek black dress and heels that didn't look like they came from any store he'd ever walked into. "You came," she said, walking toward them. Chloe beamed. Hi, Chloe," Harper said gently before looking up at Nolan. "You okay?" "I don't belong here," he said honestly. Her smile faltered. "I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. This is one of my favorite places. I thought you'd like it." "I'm wearing jeans," he said bluntly. She looked at him for a beat, then down at his daughter. "You're wearing shoes." "That's all that matters." Inside, the restaurant buzzed with waiters in white shirts and chandeliers glittering overhead. Chloe's eyes widened at the velvet booths and golden menus. "Is it someone's birthday?" she asked. Harper laughed softly. "Nope. Just dinner." The waiter didn't even blink when Harper ordered a bottle of wine Nolan couldn't pronounce and said, "Put it on my tab." "Do you come here a lot?" Chloe asked. Harper looked at her warmly. "Sometimes. When I have meetings or need to think." "What do you do?" "I run a company," Harper answered smoothly. "Lots of computers and meetings and coffee." Chloe nodded, impressed. "Like a boss," Harper smiled. "Exactly like a boss." Nolan sat back, watching the 2 of them talk while the food came in waves: steak, pasta, tiny desserts piled like art. Chloe was glowing. And Harper? She was laughing, not stiff like before, but he kept waiting for the catch. And it came after dinner when Harper walked them outside to say goodbye. I had a really good time, she said, eyes on him now. Nolan hesitated. You're not just being polite, she stepped closer. No, I meant it. He looked away for a second. You're different? How? You don't seem like someone who'd notice guys like me, she tilted her head. What kind of guy is that? He shrugged. A mechanic, a single dad who can't afford a babysitter, someone who hasn't had a real date in years. Harper's voice was soft. Maybe I noticed the man who stepped in when no one else did. The man who protects his daughter like the world depends on it. That guy's hard to miss. He didn't know what to say, but Chloe interrupted, tugging his arm. Daddy. Yeah, baby, can we see her again? Harper looked at him then. Can you? And for once, he didn't overthink it. Yeah, he said. We can. As Harper walked away, heels clicking against the pavement, Nolan realized something strange. He didn't even know her whole story, but he already knew he wanted to. The next time Harper saw Nolan, he had grease on his forearm and an opened hood above his head. She hadn't warned him she was coming. She didn't even know what she was doing until she was already parked outside the auto shop, her driver waiting at the corner while she stepped into the scent of motor oil and heat. He looked up, startled, a wrench in one hand and sweat at his temple. Harper, I was nearby, she said, brushing hair behind her ear. Thought I'd check on your car, fixing. He wiped his hands on a rag. You mean my job, she nodded once, lips pressing together. That too. He studied her for a beat, then gestured toward the garage door. You want to come in or just judge from the sidewalk? She stepped inside, careful not to trip over coiled cables or the edge of the hydraulic lift. You work on all kinds of cars. Anything with an engine and a prayer, he said, crouching again. She watched his hands move with a kind of fluid certainty, focused, purposeful. You always fix things yourself. I try. Doesn't mean I always succeed. Still, she said, stepping closer, there's something about people who can take a broken thing and put it back together. He glanced over. Machines are easier than people. They don't lie. She didn't reply right away, just leaned against the wall and watched him work. How long have you had this place? I don't. I lease a corner from a guy named Ruddy. Half the time I'm fixing up engines. The other half I'm hoping someone pays their invoice. She tilted her head. And the third half, he looked up. Parent-teacher meetings, dance recitals, emergency runs for snack day, real glamorous stuff. I like that you show up. I don't have a choice, he said simply. Chloe doesn't have anyone else. For the first time, Harper looked away. You okay? He asked, catching the shift in her face. I didn't grow up with that, showing up. My parents did everything: big vacations in the Alps, birthday parties with fireworks, but they missed every school play I ever had. Nolan stood and wiped his hands again. That's why you work so much, she met his gaze. It's why I don't trust anyone who says time is money. Time's time. You don't get it back. A beat passed between them, heavy but not uncomfortable, then a voice echoed from the back of the shop. Hey Everett, you got someone waiting on line 1, Nolan sighed. Hold on. As he disappeared into the office, Harper wandered the space. Photographs lined one wall, most of them faded. A younger Nolan with a woman who had his same eyes, Chloe barely a toddler in overalls, a man in uniform standing next to a rusted Ford. When he returned, she was still staring at them. My brother, he said quietly, nodding toward the man in uniform. Lost him 6 years ago, Afghanistan. I'm sorry, me too, she turned to him. Is that why you never left this town? It's part of it. He didn't come home. I figured someone should stay. They were quiet again until she broke the silence. I want to take you somewhere, she said. He raised a brow. Like another restaurant. Not this time, she replied. Somewhere else, tomorrow night, just you. What about Chloe? I already asked your neighbor, Mrs. Carlo, to watch her. His eyes narrowed. How do you know about Mrs. Carlo? I talk to people. That's a little unnerving. You'll live, she said. Wear something not covered in oil. The next evening, she picked him up, or rather her driver did. The car was sleek and long, the kind that glided more than rolled. Nolan stepped inside, glancing around the leather interior. You're really leaning into the mystery. Would you rather I sent a taxi? He glanced over, eyes sharp. I'd rather know where we're going. She didn't answer until the car pulled up to a large wrought iron gate and slowly rolled through. White stones stretched ahead, a villa wrapped in ivy and glowing lanterns, with a long marble fountain in front. "You live here, sometimes," she said, stepping out. "It's one of the company guest houses. I use it when I need quiet." He followed her inside, past tall glass doors and a foyer that felt more like an art museum. She led him out to the back terrace, where a private chef was plating dishes beside a fire pit. "You really went all out," Nolan said, looking at the spread of roasted vegetables, seared fish, and crystal glasses that caught the firelight. "I didn't know what you liked." "So I guessed." They sat down, and for a while they ate without speaking. The silence wasn't awkward. If anything, it was charged with something unspoken. Eventually, Harper set down her fork. "I didn't invite you here to impress you." "Then why?" "Because I wanted you to see that this isn't all of me." He looked around. "A mansion with a chef doesn't seem like a disguise." "It's not." "But it's not who I am when I'm not wearing this dress or sitting in boardrooms." He leaned back, watching her. "So who are you?" "I'm the girl who once jumped off her roof with an umbrella because she thought it would work like in the movies. I'm the teenager who snuck out to watch the stars from her dad's boat because it was the only place she felt quiet. I'm the woman who built an empire because she was terrified of being forgotten." He didn't respond right away. Then he asked, "And now I'm trying to remember who I was before I needed to prove anything." Nolan looked at her for a long moment. "You're not what I expected. I hope that's a good thing." "I don't know yet," he said honestly. "But it's something." As the fire crackled between them and the sky deepened into navy, Harper poured them each a glass of wine. "I don't let people in easily," she said. "Neither do I." He raised his glass. "To trying anyway," she said. He clinked it gently. "To trying anyway." In that moment, there were no titles, no pasts, no expectations, just a man and a woman sitting beside a fire, trying to figure out if the world might still surprise them. The first thing Nolan noticed was the silence. Not the awkward kind, but the quiet that settled between two people who'd stopped pretending they were strangers. Harper sat across from him in the corner booth of a small jazz lounge tucked beneath the city's oldest hotel, her hair swept back, her fingers curled around a glass of something amber and expensive. The music hummed low, a saxophone weaving through candlelight as if the night itself had a heartbeat. "This is more your speed," she said, watching him scan the room. "No chandeliers, no guest houses." He leaned back, letting the velvet cushion take his weight. "You're full of surprises." "I had to be," Harper said. "When I took over the company, I was 24 and surrounded by men twice my age who thought I'd fold in 6 months. Nolan set down his glass. "And now they send me Christmas cards." He smiled faintly, but his eyes didn't leave her. "You ever think about walking away from all of it?" Her gaze flicked to the stage, then back to him. "Every year on the anniversary of my father's death, but I never do. Part of me still wants to prove I can carry what he built, even if I never asked to." Nolan nodded slowly. "I know the feeling." Harper tilted her head. "Really? I didn't ask to raise Chloe alone, but the moment her mother left, I knew I would. No backup plan, no time to wish things were different." Harper's voice lowered. "Do you miss her?" "I miss the idea of her," he said. "The version I thought she was. But she never stayed long enough to be real." Something shifted in Harper's expression, barely visible but there. "I grew up watching my mother drink too much champagne and call it elegance. Every time she disappeared for a week, my father told me she was resting. I didn't realize until I was older that resting meant chasing someone who wasn't him." Nolan leaned forward. "That why you don't talk about family much? I learned early that love doesn't always stay. I built a life where nothing could leave unless I let it." He studied her, voice quiet. "And now you're opening that door. I'm not sure if I'm opening it or just standing outside wondering what it would feel like." The music swelled and faded, applause rising briefly before a new melody crept in. Harper reached for her drink, then paused. "Do you ever think," she began, "that some people aren't meant for easy love?" Nolan rubbed the back of his neck. "I think some people learn to live without it. Doesn't mean they don't want it." Her eyes didn't waver. "Would you want it again?" He didn't look away. "Depends who's offering." She held his stare for a long, unbroken moment. Then she stood. "Come with me." He followed her out, past the lingering scent of old whiskey and velvet drapes. They stepped into the cool night, the city softened by streetlight haze, and Harper led him down a side street. At the end of the block, a massive steel door stood tucked between two crumbling brick buildings. "This is yours," Nolan asked as she typed a code into the keypad. "It's where I go when I need to disappear." Inside, the space was cavernous, walls lined with vintage motorcycles and shelves of camera equipment. An old printing press sat in the corner, surrounded by stacks of black and white photos. A canvas leaned against the far wall, half-finished, streaked in charcoal and dark blue. "You're an artist?" he asked, stepping closer. "No," she said, "but I try." He turned toward her, eyebrows raised. "Harper Hayes, CEO, collector of motorcycles, closet painter." "What else are you hiding?" She crossed her arms, leaning against the nearest workbench. "I used to dance, professionally, almost. I quit before my first performance. My father offered me a seat at the board table instead. I took it." He looked around again. "Why show me this?" "Because I haven't shown it to anyone else." Nolan walked to the canvas, running a finger along the edge of the frame. "You ever finish any of them?" "Only one. It's in my closet. I don't hang things that feel too honest." He turned to face her again. "Maybe it's time you did." Harper exhaled slowly. "I don't know what this is, Nolan, us. I've spent years building shields, not bridges." He stepped closer, not touching her but close enough that she felt the weight of every unspoken thought between them. "I don't need a promise," he said. "But I won't be a secret either." She looked up at him, something raw flickering in her eyes. "You're not," he hesitated. "Then let me in." She didn't speak, but she reached behind her, pulled a key from the drawer and handed it to him. "What's this for?" "The building," she said. "Come here whenever you want. Paint, think, be quiet." He took it, fingers brushing hers. "You sure?" "I've never been more." They stood there, in the middle of a room filled with half-finished dreams and buried versions of themselves, and for the first time, neither of them felt like they had to pretend. Outside, the city buzzed with its usual chaos. But inside that forgotten building, something had shifted, not loudly, but permanently. Nolan stood outside Chloe's school, watching her bound down the steps with a paper crown on her head and a glitter-covered certificate clutched in her hand. She ran straight into his arms. "I got the kindness award," she squealed, eyes brighter than the sunlit sidewalk. He crouched to hug her tightly. "Of course you did. You're the kindest person I know." Behind them, Harper approached, careful not to steal the moment. She wore a soft gray coat today, no makeup, hair in a low twist. She looked more like someone's favorite memory than a CEO. "I didn't miss it," she asked. Chloe turned, delighted. "You came?" "I promised I would," Harper said, "and I never break promises." Nolan straightened. "You didn't have to, I wanted to," she cut in gently. They walked together, Chloe skipping ahead, stopping occasionally to wave her certificate at anyone who'd glance her way. Nolan and Harper fell into step behind her. "I keep thinking it'll get easier," Harper said under her breath. "What will?" "Letting people see me this way." "Not the curated version." He glanced sideways. "You look more real now than you ever did in a blazer." She smiled faintly. "I had a meeting this morning. My board's pushing for expansion into Southeast Asia. I spent 2 hours convincing people I was calm, collected, and fully in control. Then I left to make it to a 7-year-old school assembly. Sounds like your priorities are changing." "I think they already have." That evening, after dropping Chloe off at a sleepover, Nolan drove to the old loft with the key Harper had given him. The lights were low, the air smelled faintly of paint and aged paper. He hadn't told her he was coming. She was there anyway. She sat barefoot on the floor, legs folded, a fresh canvas in front of her. She looked up when he entered, the light from the tall window catching the curve of her shoulder. "You came," she said. "You knew I would." He joined her on the floor silently. For a while they just sat, the quiet filled with the rustle of wind against the glass and the soft scratch of charcoal against canvas. She was drawing now, not shapes, not people, just motion. "I've been thinking about something all day," she said. "Yeah, I have more rooms than I can count, but none of them feel like home." He looked at her. "What does? This place," she said. "With you, with Chloe, not just the space. The stillness in it." "I don't have much to offer," he said carefully. "No trust funds, no connections, no guest houses." She reached for his hand. "You offer everything that matters." He squeezed her fingers. "You sure?" She nodded. I used to think love had to be earned through achievement. Now I understand it's the one thing that shouldn't be. He held her gaze. I don't know how to fit into your world. Then let's build a new one, she said. Together. Weeks passed. Spring rolled in with warm breezes and longer days. Chloe planted sunflowers in the backyard of Nolan's tiny house, and Harper, in a hoodie and jeans, helped her, dirt on her hands and laughter in her lungs. One Saturday morning, Nolan stepped out onto the porch. Harper and Chloe sat on a picnic blanket, assembling a lopsided tea party for a row of stuffed animals. Chloe wore a plastic tiara. Harper wore a paper one. Daddy, Chloe called, you're late. Sir Barrington already finished his tea. Nolan stepped down, grinning. I hope he saved me a cookie. Harper held one up. Only slightly crushed. They sat like that, the three of them, with the scent of grass in the air and sunlight painting everything gold. Nolan looked at Harper, her eyes crinkling as she laughed at something Chloe said, and he felt something settle inside him, something that had been restless for years. Peace. Later that evening, Harper took his hand as they watched Chloe fall asleep on the couch, her head resting on a pile of books. I have one more surprise, Harper whispered. Nolan raised an eyebrow. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a folded envelope. What is it? He opened it. Inside, there were 3 plane tickets, Paris, summer, first class. I don't need Paris, he said quietly. No, she replied, but I want to show Chloe the world, and I want to show it to her with you. He looked at her for a long time. Are you asking what I think you're asking? I'm not asking, she said. I'm choosing, you, her. Us? He leaned in, brushing his lips against hers with the kind of soft certainty that didn't need fanfare, just truth. When they pulled apart, he whispered, then I'm choosing you right back. The next month, they moved into a house just outside the city, a place with a garden for Chloe, a studio for Harper, and a garage Nolan could finally call his own. There were no fireworks, no elaborate ceremonies. Just 3 people in one home, building a life that didn't need to be perfect, only real. And for the first time in a long time, that was more than enough. The smell of cinnamon and fresh linen drifted through the open windows of their new home as Harper stood barefoot in the kitchen, flipping pancakes while Nolan fiddled with a radio dial beside her. The kitchen was sunlit and lived in now Chloe's latest crayon masterpiece, taped to the fridge, Harper's paint-streaked apron draped over a chair, Nolan's wrenches scattered neatly in a container by the back door where he'd come in from fixing a leaky garden pipe. I didn't think I'd ever like mornings, Harper said, nudging the last pancake onto a plate. But here I am, making breakfast without checking my phone first. Nolan leaned back against the counter, arms crossed, watching her. You used to wake up checking stock reports. I still get the alerts, she said, turning off the stove. I just don't care about them before 9 anymore. You know that's basically blasphemy in your world, she smiled to herself. I stepped out of that world. At least the part that made me feel like I didn't belong anywhere else. You ever miss it? She handed him the plate. I miss the challenge, not the emptiness. Chloe padded into the room in oversized sleep socks and a cape she'd made from a curtain tie. Is today the fair? Nolan set the plate down. It is, and you're still the queen of it. Harper crouched to straighten the crooked paper badge pinned to Chloe's shirt. Queen of the spring fair. That's a big responsibility. I get to ride the Ferris wheel twice, she said solemnly, because I'm important. Harper whispered, don't let the power go to your head. Chloe squinted. What? Nothing, Your Highness, Harper replied, standing again. Later, at the fairgrounds on the edge of town, Harper kept one hand in Nolan's as they weaved between tents strung with wildflowers and booths, selling candied apples and handmade jewelry. Chloe darted ahead toward a petting zoo, waving at every goat like it owed her money. This is the first time no one asked me for a photo, Harper said, glancing around. Because no one here knows they're supposed to, Nolan replied. I like that. She squeezed his hand once. I never thought I'd be okay not being recognized. You're not invisible, he said. You're just seen by the right people now. They found a quilt spread near the lake, where Harper pulled from a canvas tote a sketch pad she'd brought along. Nolan lay back, arms behind his head, watching clouds roll across the sky while Chloe chased a bubble machine with 2 other kids she'd just met. You know, Harper murmured, sketching a figure she wouldn't let him see yet. My assistant nearly cried when I told her I wasn't coming back to New York. Because she wanted you to stay. Because she thought I was having a breakdown. I told her I was finally having a life. He turned his head. And you're really sure? I'm sure, she said. I've handed off the company, kept a seat on the board so I can yell at people when they make dumb decisions. But the day-to-day, it's not mine anymore. He sat up slightly. That's huge. I thought I'd feel lost without the title. But I feel more like myself than I ever did in that corner office. He reached over and brushed a wisp of hair from her cheek. You're not the only one who changed. How so? I used to think my life had a ceiling, like I couldn't ask for more than what I had. But now I catch myself planning things. Big things, she turned to face him. Like what? Like opening a full shop, not just leased space, with my name on the window. A place Chloe can hang out after school, a place we can build something that's ours. Her eyes glinted. You've been thinking about this, for weeks. Then let's do it, he blinked. You mean that? I have spreadsheets and contacts and more capital than I know what to do with. But more importantly, I believe in you. Let's build it together. He stared at her for a moment, overwhelmed not by the offer, but by the ease with which she gave it, with no trace of pity or control, just faith. Okay, he said, voice thick. Let's do it. Back home that evening, after Chloe fell asleep curled up with a new stuffed alpaca from the fair, Harper sat beside Nolan on the porch swing, twinkle lights casting soft halos across the railing. Do you remember the day we met? She asked. You mean the one where I tackled a guy on the sidewalk? That one, he smiled, eyes closed. I remember thinking you looked like you belonged in an editorial spread. And I was standing there in a shirt with a grease stain. And I remember thinking I didn't want you to walk away. They were quiet for a beat before she added, I've never been in love like this before. He opened his eyes. Like what? Like I can breathe. Like I'm not being asked to shrink or perform, just be. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small velvet pouch and placed it in her hand. I didn't know if I'd ever do this again, he said. But then you showed up and started painting your way into my life. She opened it slowly. Inside was a delicate gold ring, not flashy but intentionally chosen. Etched inside was a single word, begin. This isn't a proposal, he said. It's a promise that we'll never stop building this, whatever this is, that we'll always keep choosing it. Harper looked up, eyes wet but steady. Then I have a promise too. She reached into her own pocket and pulled out a tiny gold key. It's not for a house, she said. It's for the studio. I had a lock installed last week. This one's yours. He took it from her hand and pressed a kiss to her palm. Guess that means I'm not just a visitor anymore. Never were, she whispered. Years later, their garage bore Nolan's name in bold letters, and inside, Chloe helped organize parts while Harper painted in the back room they'd converted into a lofted studio. On weekends, they still went to the lake. Chloe fished with Nolan, Harper read nearby, and sometimes they'd all fall asleep under the same sun that once seemed too far away. There were still hard days, leaky pipes, missed meetings, burnt pancakes, but they faced them together, never questioning whether they were meant to. Because they were, and they always would be.